Critical Support, the news and views from two expert journalists. Myself, Shirin or in Americese, Shirin Sadeghi. As you can tell from my name, I'm Iranian, and as you can tell from my accent, I'm American. And my co-host, Charles Davis.
I'm Charles Davis. I'm an American journalist based in Vienna, Austria, founder of the publication The Redoubt, and a contributor to The Guardian.
Welcome, folks, to another edition of Critical Support, where Charles Davis and I support you and each other as we make our way through the times of our lives. Charles, you have got an exciting show for us today. I mean, there's no other way to describe this. You were literally at Eurovision.
Yeah, truly a milestone both for the Redoubt and the Critical Support podcast. I applied with complete transparency and honesty for this press pass using both affiliations, and somehow it happened. Shirin. We got in. I got a swag bag, which is dubious ethics, but I didn't ask for it, and I definitely didn't go soft on Eurovision as a result. But the reason I think that this was obviously a story for us is that it is truly the intersection of politics and culture. And we're going to get into that from a report that I did over the weekend where I interviewed people who were both going to Eurovision, which, there for the song and dance, the pinnacle of European pop culture every year. And then I also met people who were protesting Eurovision over Israel's inclusion. And I spoke to people about why they thought politics should be involved in this cultural event.
So this is huge. First of all, I don't want you to knock yourself for getting a legitimate press pass. I mean, come on, you deserve that. You are a journalist. You do have a number of outlets you are working for, including The Redoubt and Critical Support. I mean, you're legit, man. I don't want to hear any knocking on a
no,
legit,
definitely. And I truly appreciated it when there was a massive line to get into the Eurovision watch party at Rathausplatz, which is City Hall, which we'll get into in the piece. But there was a massive security line, and I had this pass, and I was able to bypass it all, go through a little side entrance. They scan it, and my photo comes up on their scanner, and they look at you for a second, and then they just let you in. So I definitely appreciated it in the end.
Okay, that's high security, right? Sicherheit.
Right, but, and I mean that also gets into, which we'll get into in a second, but that speaks to how there was a lot of tension surrounding the event this year, and certainly Israel's participation in it. So while it is fun and games, the politics was literally you could see it all around.
Well, folks, Charles has put together a beautiful package for us about Eurovision, and it's going to be included in this show, and we're going to talk about the package, right, Charles?
Yes, we are.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play the package, and maybe we'll stop here and there if we have something to say, and we'll talk about it. There's a lot going on, and a very well done report here from Charles R. Davis for Critical Support.
I'm here at Maria Theresienplatz in central Vienna, and behind me they're setting up a concert to protest another concert. Last year, Austria won the opportunity to host the next Eurovision. If you're somehow not familiar, it's like a mix of the Olympics and American Idol. Each country that participates sends a pop singer or two to try and win it all. It's usually pretty camp. The song is catchy, if not always good, and the attire is always over the top. And it's more controversial than you might think a song contest should be. What's the issue? The stage behind me has a banner. No platform for genocide. In 2022, Russia invaded Ukraine and got itself thrown out of Eurovision. So some people are wondering, why hasn't the same thing happened to Israel over its invasion of Gaza and Lebanon? In fact, a number of governments are wondering that too. Ireland, Iceland, Spain, Slovenia, the Netherlands, they all boycotted this year. Their public broadcasters aren't even showing it on TV. The argument is that Israel exploits Eurovision to present a more friendly, liberal face to the world. We know too that the Israeli government has fought hard to remain in the contest and to prevent others from pulling out. And it has poured a lot of energy into encouraging people to vote for their contestant. Still, doesn't every country kind of do that? And is it fair to hold an Israeli performer responsible for the actions of their government? I mean, I'm an American. I'm not sure I'm in a good position to talk. At the same time, I think I'd get it if people didn't want an American here either. It's not personal, it's politics. But should it even be here? I'm curious what people at this protest have to say about that.
Hi, Spriggins English?
Yes.
Do you mind telling me about why everyone is out here?
Yes. First, I'm.
Tell me who you are.
Yeah, exactly. I'm Wilhelm Langthaler, and I'm part of the organizing committee, as well as representative of Palestine Solidarity Austria.
Okay, and so like, obviously Israel is participating in Eurovision this year. Why, from your perspective, is that a bad idea?
Israel is not only committing a genocide, it's also that they are using the song contest to make propaganda for their genocide. They are whitewashing the biggest crime since the Second World War. It's a crime against humanity, and we don't want this to be projected in the entire world and whitewashed, art-washed, whatever you want to call it. So it's something which we cannot accept. And it's not only us. It's a huge part of the population who does not want this show to happen. And we are not alone. You see, across Europe, there were very brave countries like Spain, like Slovenia, like others, who pulled out because the European organization continued to include Israel. You know, when there was the events in Russia, Russia was excluded all of a sudden. This was not a problem.
Why do you think they're so fast to exclude Russia, but Israel has not been similarly excluded?
Yes, this is the question which we posed. It's something incredible, no? Because the crime committed by Israel is extreme. It's they are exterminating an entire people. It's we cannot accept this, and this is why we were asking the Austrian government as well as the public broadcaster to exclude Israel. They did not react, and they are violating also Austrian constitution by that, because the Austrian constitution stipulates neutrality, but they are supporting a genocide. You know, this is something which is completely undemocratic, which is colonial, which is supporting apartheid. It's against international law. So what else can we do than to protest?
So Charles, this is an amazing vox pop, I have to say. My first reaction, I wonder, am I allowed to have a reaction at this point?
Of course.
My first reaction to this is he's very clear on why he's there and why he's protesting. I just wonder, because some of the phrases he used, of course, reminds me of Iran, I have to be very honest. And I wonder if this guy would be similarly opposed to, for instance, the Islamic Republic of Iran soccer squad being allowed at the World Cup because of the horrific atrocities that they committed this year. This is the balance that I'm trying to find. Would this same person apply his logic to other states who have committed atrocities this year?
No, I definitely think that's a fair question. One thing I would say is that obviously the kind of anti-Israel protest and the Palestine solidarity movement has been built up over years, if not decades. So this is the kind of, I don't think the public reaction and the galvanization around the protests has like just been a product of what has happened since October 7th, the terrorist attack that preceded Israel's war in Gaza. But it's the culmination of that. So there's like I think a stronger base for them to then have these kind of protests than there would be, you know, with Iran. There has not been, as you well know, a solidarity movement with Iran that has been extended or built up over the last 20 years. If anything, there's of course been left-wing apologism for the Iranian regime as at least a lesser evil compared to American imperialism. But what you get at there is, I think...
Wait, I gotta cut you off, Charles. The Iranian people have been organizing protests against the Islamic regime for the Islamic Republic of Iran for 47 years.
No, absolutely. I don't think it has seeped into like traditionally like left-wing spaces, right? Like you don't see it so much in like socialist conversations. It seems to be kind of segregated. Like,
you almost don't see it at all, to be honest, in the left.
No, and I think that is a fair criticism. But the other thing I would say, and I think this does complicate the question of Israel's involvement, is whether those performing under the colors of their national flag represent the nation, whether they are serving a propaganda purpose. Because the Women's Cup, you know, the Iranian soccer team, I don't think anyone would really accuse them of being all supporters of the regime. Certainly not. Several of them sought asylum in Australia. So, you know, definitely it's not, you can't say that these people represent their governments. At the same time, though, I I would ask you, do you think it does serve a propagandistic function for a national team, for Iran, or for any other country to succeed, and then for their government to then claim that success and kind of, drape themselves in it?
Yeah, so this is the point that this man raised, and that's why I'm applying it to Iran. You are absolutely right. The squads of the women's team and the men's team, for instance, for the Islamic Republic of Iran, a lot of them don't want to play for that government at all. They've been very open for about it. The most important player on Iran's soccer team this year, Ali Karimi, has been banned by the Islamic Republic of Iran from even participating in the World Cup this year because he has been speaking out against the mass killings that happened in January and other crimes that he's raised that the state of Iran has committed. He's been kicked out of the squad. So yeah, you're absolutely right. And you're absolutely right about Israel. Noam Beton has been very vocal about supporting the state of Israel. That is his country, and he is proud to be representing it. And yes, the Iranian squad members are not proud to be representing, but they present themselves very often as representing the people of Iran. So there is that distinction.
And I think there's also the distinction, certainly in the form of government, right? Like nobody would claim that the Iranian government is a representative democracy.
Exactly.
I think obviously there's an asterisk when you say that about Israel. And in fact, when you say that about the United States too, right?
Right.
Israel definitely has a massive Palestinian population that is disenfranchised. That being said, the Israeli performer totally could say what he wants about his government and face maybe a public relations backlash back home, but he has more freedom to speak without state violence being enacted against him, right? As bad as the Israeli government is, he is an Israeli citizen and could say it. Just like I think, as I introduced the piece, as an American, if there were an American performer at Eurovision and they did this coy thing where like, oh, I don't want to get into politics or whatever, I would say, like you have a responsibility to speak out about what is happening in America, putting aside its foreign policy, like the ICE raids, the kind of the attempt to eliminate America's immigrant population, its transgender population from the public sphere. I would say you have a responsibility to speak out about that. So certainly as like representatives of, I would say, quasi-democratic governments, I do think you as a performer, as an athlete, should be held to a different standard.
Yeah, and that's a very good point. I mean, whether they're quasi or I don't think there's any government except perhaps possibly a few in Scandinavia. We'll have to revisit that. That is very democratic, right? I mean, a lot of the democracies that we are living with in our day and age right now are problematic. The United States being one of them, Israel being one of them. But yeah, a place like the Islamic Republic of Iran absolutely has no representative government. The supreme leader chooses who can even run for president.
I'm curious though, let's say in theory, like Eurovision has been extended to the Islamic Republic of Iran, and there were a performer from Iran who, let's just not say they were like explicitly pro-regime, but they're in that kind of wishy-washy, like, there's a lot of complicated things going on. I don't want to talk about that, but I love my country. I mean, would you as an Iranian be like rooting for them, or would you think that, this is serving a propagandistic function for the government? I'm curious like how you would interpret that.
So probably the same as with Israel. They would not have picked, or perhaps someone who was being openly largely critical of the Israeli government would not have probably brought on, as any country, Bulgaria, Hungary, France, UK, they're not going to they're not going to let it happen that someone who is being openly political is going to be able to participate. With the Islamic Republic of Iran, if they were invited to Eurovision, which is actually it makes a lot of sense. I mean, Azerbaijan and Armenia, who are as close to Europe as Iran is, have been invited. I believe they were participating even this year, at least one of them. If they brought a representative from the Islamic Republic of Iran, 100% that person would have been very openly supportive of that government. And that would have been someone in the very, very small minority of people who support that government. So yeah, I mean, these kinds of considerations are being played around all over. And if someone did come from the Islamic Republic of Iran, I guarantee you that most Iranians would not support that person.
Yeah, and I guess that's where it's easy for me to get out of like the abstract vacuum question of whether it is fair to make every citizen of a country answer for the crimes that their government has committed over the last couple of centuries, let's say. And get back into the real world where like, yeah, we can't be so naive. Just like the Olympics, here at Eurovision is not just about what is the presentation on stage, right? It exists in this broader world where the Israeli government is lobbying very hard to be included. It's lobbying very hard for other countries not to boycott because it does see a very real propaganda benefit from participating and from potentially winning.
This is a great conversation. I'm so glad that we're having this. Should we play some more of your package?
Yes, please.
Before I came to this, I wasn't sure how many people would actually show up. I've been to some pretty sad protests over the years. But this one is actually packed. At least 500 people, maybe 1,000, and pretty professional. One table has literature that in German describes Donald Trump as the world's #1 terrorist. It's a Trotskyist group called Linkswende Jetzt, which in English means turn left now. I figured I'd go see what they have to say about all this, and ended up speaking to Echo Lex, an organizer with the group.
Why is Israeli participation in Eurovision so objectionable from your point of view?
Yeah, so Israel is committing a genocide in Gaza. So, and not even just a genocide, there's also aggression towards other countries in the region. Mm-hmm. There has been for years and years. And that in itself is a problem. Like the European Broadcasting Union explicitly forbade Russia to participate because of their aggressive actions against other countries. And so it's very inconsistent to let Israel participate in that event, pinkwashing basically their actions with the support of the European Broadcasting Union and Austria as well.
So how do you respond, though, to people that say, look, it's Eurovision, it's silly, it's fun costumes, it's fun songs, and it's, yes, there's an Israeli participant, but they're not the Israeli government. So is it fair to hold them responsible? What do you kind of say to those people?
It's not about the singer per se, so it's about the political context of the event. Like the Eurovision is always portrayed as a non-political, non-partisan event, but it really isn't that. Like there has always been a very strong political connotation to Eurovision, especially like participants do enter the contest under their country's flags. Mm-hmm. There's politicians all around Eurovision giving interviews, having photo shootings with stars and stuff. So there's a very big political component to that, and it wouldn't be fair to just separate it and say, well, it's just a singing contest, because it isn't that.
Another great protester who has thought through why he's there, what he's doing there, and a lot of what he says makes sense to me. But again, I'm going to quote something he said that immediately made me think of other countries. You probably know which one I'm thinking of, Charles. Mm-hmm. It's on my mind a lot, obviously, these days. He says, Israel should not be allowed to participate because, quote, their aggression toward other countries in the region. Now, I mean, Iran's bombed 20 countries in the Middle East in the last few months. I mean, again, these are important conversations that we're having, and I actually like how the Austrian protester is articulating his position. But again, where do we draw the line here? I mean, should Iran be allowed, the Islamic Republic of Iran, be allowed in the World Cup in July? Yeah.
I think as far as socialist groups go, you might actually like this one because their Trotskyist tradition has kind of led them to like an anti-authoritarian, non-campist position, which I'll get a little less left jargony here and just explain that they are not apologists for authoritarian states, right? And I think Wiki gets there about how like Eurovision has always required participants to enter under their national flag speaks to kind of the group's broader philosophy of anti-nationalism. And this I also just don't disagree with, right? Like I think if putting aside like trying to get Eurovision maximal ratings or whatever, right? I think in an ideal romanticized socialistic world, people would enter these contests not as participants for, Ireland or Spain or Germany or Austria, but as members of the human race. You would not be like by definition, including a nationalist component where we're having countries compete against each other, admittedly in a low stakes, friendlier environment. But we wouldn't be requiring people to be representatives of their nation and then, opening them up to this whole conversation of like, well, are you representing a good nation or a bad nation? So I think if, Iran were included, Echo Lex and others in his group would also speak out against that. But I do think the point about Russia that they and other protesters have made is one that Eurovision has invited, right? Like right after the 2022 full-scale invasion of Ukraine, there was no question Russia was thrown out of Eurovision. And so they look at that, and I think it's important to note that, yeah, there's no apologists for Russia, at least amongst the people that I spoke to. They all agree that it engaged in an aggressive war against another member of the European community, and it got kicked out. So why isn't Israel, it is also, at least for the purposes of this contest, included in the broader European community, being kicked out for a war of aggression against not just Palestine, Gaza, which, part of the Israel-Palestine region, right? The broader polity, and then Lebanon. So what is this double standard? And I don't think the European broadcasters and Eurovision organizers have been able to come up with a compelling response to that because the hypocrisy is something that they themselves invited.
This is so interesting because I've been reading that Palantir guy's manifesto that he wrote. Karp. What's his first name?
I think it's Alex Karp, and you're
Yes,
talking about the
Alex
kind
Karp.
of tech fascist group
Yes.
associated with Peter Thiel.
Yes, he wrote this book that I'm reading, The Technological Republic. And he's pretty clear on what he's trying to do to the world. And one of the tenets that he is promoting, that he's insisting on, is nationalism. He feels that people are not nationalist enough. So it's really interesting to me to hear you kind of say, let's toss out nationalism. Because as someone who has two nationalities to reference, Iranian and American, I have grappled with this issue my whole life. I just wonder, it sounds beautiful to toss out nationalism, and I think it could make sense. But isn't part of the appeal, and again, you were saying that in that scenario where we toss out the flags, toss out the state sponsoring the nationalism, and we just have individuals competing on their own, I mean, wouldn't that just be like X Factor or American Idol? And I'm not saying that's bad, but isn't part of the appeal of these international competitions like World Cup or Eurovision or what have you, isn't part of the appeal that people get to wave their own flags?
I mean, existing in the world as it is, I think, sure. I would also say that X Factor and American Idol also do incredibly well in terms of ratings. So there is an
Yeah.
audience for them. And I do think our international version could do well, although that's not my field. But I also think there's, we need the romantic socialist idealists of the world to be there to remind us that, there is something that we should be striving for, right? Like there is a world of unity, of human love without these like nationalist divisions that like would be ideal. At the same time, I know that there's people on the left of good faith that I don't consider bad people who think, nationalism or national pride at least exists. Humans are a little tribal by perhaps nature, although the whole question of nature is very problematic. But like knowing, just accepting the world as it is, like maybe we could channel these energies into something a little less destructive. And then, Eurovision would be an example of that, right? Like maybe, less war, more song competition. Um, but at the same time, as we've been discussing, it's like you can't even do that though, right? Like even the song competition gets all of this politics involved. It gets, Russia invades Ukraine, so Russia gets kicked out. Israel invades Gaza, and like, this is something we can discuss a little bit later too. But like, despite all the lovey-dovey talk of like Eurovision bringing people together, and not excluding Israel over the actions of its government, like I did not see a single open Israeli fan the entire week that Eurovision was taking place here in Vienna, which I think speaks to the fact that like people know there were no doubt Israelis here, but like they knew that like carrying their own flag and having pride in this like healthier way for their performer, that would invite kind of criticism and a little bit of heckling, I'm sure.
And that's interesting because Noam Betten himself, he said, quote, "I'm entering the lion's den." And I know that's a biblical reference. You can educate our audiences more. It's something about Daniel. Is that correct? Daniel and a lion's den in the Bible. But he mentioned this. And then he said, but I did see a few supporters, and he was referring to flags when I was performing, and it made all the difference. So yeah, I mean, that's a problematic thing as well, where some people's positions as represented by a national flag are being kind of silenced or stifled because it's actually dangerous for them to wave that flag. I could again say that about Iranians as well, who there's the flag that Iran had from 1907 until 1979, and waving that flag in public can be dangerous.
Yeah, and I mean, like, I don't think any innocent fan who just wants to support their performer should get abused by anyone. At the same time, I do think about it as an American, and I think, like, if I were running around Vienna with a massive American flag or whatever,
And it would be massive, wouldn't it?
it would be, because it would be like, the car dealership kind of
Yeah.
American flag. It would be, and I think not undeservedly so, interpreted as a kind of political act. And if I like got invited some people to like to heckle me as a result, I would be like, you know what, fair enough. Like Donald Trump is this is a family program, so I'll say a huge jerk, whatever you think of his policies. And like I understand that by running around with this flag, I'm making what a lot of people could interpret as a political statement. And I would say the same thing too of like Syria back when the civil war was still raging. If you were a Syrian government supporter, there were two flags there, so it allowed some choice for a Syrian. But if you were waving the Syrian government flag at the time, you'd be rightly seen as a supporter of the authoritarian Syrian regime.
Right.
And so I think you would be rightly interpreted as making a political statement by waving it. So like, I don't know if there is an alternative Israeli flag that one could wave to just show that you don't necessarily support everything that is going on there. But I do think it's not entirely unfair. I mean, I get that it's unfair, but I don't think it's entirely unfair to like see it as a political act at this point in time.
Yeah, I mean, this flag thing is interesting. You were there on the scene. Were there a lot of flags being waved generally?
There were a ton of flags and a ton of people dressed in their national flags, right? Like at the Eurovision watch party that I attended a little bit later, there were people dressed like full on like Australia flag with like an Australia hat and United Kingdom hats and Finland hats and other flags that I had to like Google, to be honest.
Wait a second. Was Australia in the Eurovision this year?
Australia was indeed in Eurovision. Do not ask me how Australia is Europe, except
Now
for
that's
the fact that it is a
ridiculous.
settler colony. We know that had people from the United Kingdom take over from the Aboriginal population. So like they're kind of acknowledging that, I guess. But yeah, it does. I mean, I think there's a lot of ways that Eurovision has invited criticism of itself over the years, and one is like excluding Russia after its war, but not Israel. But then inviting countries that are definitely not in Europe. And then making kind of like explicit the fact that European identity is maybe tied to whiteness and perceptions of it.
Wow, this we have so much to discuss, Charles. This is absolutely ridiculous. On what globe not any in my classrooms when I was growing up, is Australia in Europe. That's just, you see, so these are the kinds of things that are kind of echoing some of the statements that these protesters are making, which is that whether you like it or not, these competitions are political.
Yeah, I mean, again, it'd be nice to live in the ideal world where we could just enjoy things, and I definitely I definitely don't I have the awareness of not being a buzzkill, and so certainly when I went to Eurovision to watch it, I was trying not to ruin anyone's time by saying, what about genocide, right? But it exists in the world, it exists in the rough world that we want to forget, and like we can try to forget that momentarily, but it's just it does not exist in a vacuum.
It doesn't. But speaking of vacuums, I listened to the performance of Dara, Darina Yotova, who is the Bulgarian young lady who won the Eurovision contest this year. She beat out Noam Beton, actually, of Israel. He got second place. And she is just the absolute epitome to me of just sucking in the whole concept of Eurovision into one performance. She was so camp. She was totally plastic. I don't know how much work this poor woman has had done, and she was Eurovision in my view. Is that the impression that you got?
Well, do you mean Eurovision in the positive or the pejorative sense?
I mean Eurovision as this is the campest, most extreme, most ridiculous song contest in the world.
Yeah, I mean, that's hard to deny. It is everything that I thought Eurovision was before I ever moved to Europe or ever watched Eurovision beyond the viral clips that would make it onto social media. But yeah, I mean, and then I think that's why it also, as you can get from some of my questions, why it's like, it's easy to interpret Eurovision as a kind of silly and kind of, kind of dumb fun, right? So why are we ruining it with this politics?
That's the thing though, because you said earlier you're like, oh, I don't want to be a buzzkill. I don't want to show up and spoil what is definitely just a truly ridiculous and fun event by pointing out the facts of the matter, which is
Well,
that yeah.
us, at least speaking for myself, us on the left, we do have a reputation for being scolds. And I try to get away from that, again, let people enjoy things to an extent. But if you ask me, I will give you some pertinent facts.
And the facts matter. This is so hard because World Cup is coming up as well, which is for me the number one world event since childhood. I mean, this is it. This and the Olympics. These are the things that made me feel like, there's hope, right? And then we have to get into the politics of this. And I don't know how to deal with it. I mean, I remember as a child, Russia almost never got to have its flag at the Olympics. They were always the ones skating or ice dancing on the Olympic flag because they were condemned but allowed to participate. Do you remember that?
I honestly, my first Olympics that I remember was like 1996, and that was primarily because there was a bombing outside of it.
Oh my God. Oh yeah, that's right. The Georgia one, right?
Yes, and honestly, though, the Olympics is something I just can't enjoy for the reasons that we're talking about right now, which is just like knowing that it exists in this heavily political world, knowing that there are states like Russia and China and many others, I'm sure, that like, get people as kids and then like encourage performance enhancing drugs. And they do all this because they do see a national PR benefit from collecting as many gold medals as possible. And so it's like, yeah, I'm definitely somebody, it's very hard for me to enjoy things.
Oh man, Charles, you got to try to enjoy things. But this is an important conversation that we're having because I think that the kind of mental health positive approach to these world competitions has to involve a little bit of both, a little bit of Charles R. Davis wanting to know about the facts, wanting to know about the political, wanting to discuss the political, and a little bit of, wait a second, this is Darina Yotova, who has lips that were not born on any human, and and other features that also don't look real but are so exaggerated. They're entertaining, they're ridiculous, they're funny, they're camp. Um, this is kind of this is the only way we can make it through the world, right? We're trying to critically support our listeners. This is what we have to do, right? We have to feel free to ask the difficult questions, but at the same time, having asked the questions, find the good or the entertaining or the pleasing in all of these scenarios.
Yeah, and this is very grad school of me. But like we can criticize something without hating on it, right? Like you can
Yeah.
interrogate and critique anything, and it doesn't mean we're saying don't enjoy things, right? Like, you can critique Star Trek, you can critique Lord of the Rings, whatever, right? Like that doesn't mean, this means like don't like abandon your intelligence and the fact that these are all these cultural artifacts exists in a world that is flawed. But that doesn't mean we have to hate it. And I did speak to some people that just enjoyed Eurovision, right? It was a little bit refreshing after going from the Palestine genocide protests and all their legitimate concerns to going and speaking to people that were there just to have a good time and to kind of hear their perspective on all the politics that they were well aware was surrounding this event.
Are you ready for the final? Wow!
The city of Vienna hosted a big outdoor party all week next to City Hall, or Rathausplatz, for everyone who didn't have tickets to the event itself. But if you've ever shown up to a party and you're the only one stone cold sober, you know it can take a minute or two to adjust and work up the energy to talk with complete strangers who are operating on a different level. I didn't have to worry about that too much, though. They started talking to me.
Are you pressed, mate? Are you pressed?
I am.
Yeah?
Yeah.
You got any spare tickets going for the venue?
That was Barry, and unfortunately I could not get him into the venue. He came all the way from the United Kingdom with his partner, Catherine. They look like they're in their 50s, and he's wearing what I would describe as an endearingly obnoxious vest, white with flowers all over it, that he told me he took possession of after someone left it behind at the pub. He says his friends don't see him as the kind of guy who would be into Eurovision, but he says he loves it, and he's loved it since he was a kid.
Come from Manchester, we've got to Eurovision every year.
Okay.
Started in Turin a few years ago, moved on to Basel last year, obviously in Vienna today, and absolutely brilliant. The people, no matter where you are, we're talking all sorts, sport, religion, Christianity and all that, and everyone loves each other.
Earlier in the week, the Israeli performer was booed during the semifinals. People were kicked out. Barry and Catherine didn't really think this was the place for that.
To me, it's about the world coming together, like you say. It's about the peace. What's going on? Why do we hate each other? Why is there so many wars? Let's love each other for the right reasons.
It's universal, isn't it, really? It doesn't really matter, sort of where you come from. Music sort of like joins everyone together, really. So,
What do you think about the fact that over the years, though, Eurovision got a little bit more politics
Well,
involved in it, right?
Well, it shouldn't have had politics, should it, really? That was a whole ethos of Eurovision. It's like getting everybody together, and actually people that come here, there's no animosity because people recognise that if you're kind and nice to people and talk to them in a polite way, you can have decent conversations and gain understanding of another person, really.
Show respect no matter what country you're from, what religion you are. We've seen Ukraine flags, we've seen all sorts of flags, and no one's going past going boo and all that. And everyone's going, wow, yes. And I can have a photograph of it, and everyone's going, yes, and it's friendly. And it's great, and that's how the world should be.
The Mancunian couple, that's what British people call people from Manchester, by the way. They were so entertaining. I got to be honest, I really couldn't understand everything.
I was
they
about
said.
to get to that. Like, if you do not know Manchester or whatever Mancunian English, I would give you a tip as somebody who's also trying to learn German. Do not focus on trying to understand every word. You glob onto the one word that you do recognize and try to get the rest from emotional cadence. So like this guy was having a good time, and just so focus on the words that you understand. Because yeah, this was a reminder that that speaking English, American English, does not necessarily mean I understand English.
I don't know if all British people can understand Mancunian either, though. I didn't want to leave this podcast without mentioning, because we brought up that apparently Australia counts as Europe, the people that were excluded from this competition. Because if we do accept that it is entertaining, it is fun, it is a moment of, okay, the world is horrible, horrible things are happening at this event that are upsetting people, but it's supposed to be fun, and there are fun moments. If we accept that, yeah, this does actually make a difference for nations that are allowed to send a candidate. And for instance, the people of Palestine, I don't believe they were allowed to send a candidate. This could have been a small but symbolic moment for them of I don't know, maybe a little bit of joy. I don't know.
Yeah,
Or
you might not get so many calls for excluding people if more people were included in the first
exactly.
place.
Or I mean, if the people of Iran were allowed to send someone outside of the government, or I don't know, the people of Sudan, or where the hell is Europe if Australia's in it? These a lot of times when I have watched these competitions with Americans or Europeans, certainly Western Europeans, they don't understand how left out so much of the world feels, that they don't get to cheer on their person. We're talking a lot about nationalism, but maybe it's just tribalism. Maybe it's that person that looks like me and speaks my language, and I don't get to cheer. I don't get to wrap myself in my flag and show up at Eurovision. And those are things that make people angrier about the state of the world. You know what I mean?
No, definitely. I mean, it's one thing to say it is a fun competition, but when you never see someone that looks like you or sounds like you on the stage, and you know that is a conscious decision by organizers who have extended the franchise to Australia, it can't help but help but feel a little hurt by it.
Well, Charles, thank you so much for going to this event, putting together this amazing package. I hope that the listeners, as I did, get the sense of everything that happened over the weekend at Eurovision, get the sense of the fun, get the sense of the concerns people had, get the sense of what is yet another international competition and all its ups and downs and trials and tribulations and goods and bads. Thank you so much for putting together this package for Critical Support. We're lucky to have you.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that.
Critical Support is available on Apple and Spotify. And if you would like to support our work and help us expand our operations, you can find us at patreon.com/criticalsupport. Paid subscribers get early access to all new episodes and interviews, as well as extended cuts of our previous shows. And if you have any feedback, topics we should discuss, or people we should speak to, you can contact us at criticalsupportpod@proton.me. That's criticalsupportpod@proton.me.
Critical Support Charles X. Shirin is a weekly 30-minute podcast of views, news, and interviews. Shirin Soderi is the co-host, co-producer, and sound engineer. Charles R. Davis is the co-host and co-producer. The theme music is the song Level Zero by the band Mon Plaisir from their album Turbo Rally Clicker 4000. Critical Support receives no corporate or institutional funding. We aim to be free to hold all to account.